Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another podcast show, and we've got a great guest with us today, and the person I'm talking about is Melanie Prince. Now, Melanie is not only a young lady full of surprises, which I'm hoping I'm even going to be surprised even more on this particular podcast from what I already know, but you're also head of innovation for an Austria-based company called F-List GmbH.
That's correct.
Now, before I hit you with the big obvious question, okay, what I'd like you to do, please, is just give us a little insight into who F-List are. And I've got to say, from my background, okay, where I come from, how on earth did they come to get that name? Okay, and what the company does before I ask you that obvious question, okay?
Absolutely. Our owner is called Friends List, and that's where the F list came from. So the first letter of her first name and then his family name. Since then, Katarina List Nagel took over the company. So this is how we came up with the name. It's fairly simple, actually.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, what does F-List actually do? And obviously I know that you're involved with private jets, yachts and exclusive homes, but what in particular, Melanie?
Sure. We were founded in the 50s as a cabinet making shop, like a lot of cabinet making shops in Austria. Yeah. In the 80s, we started in the very exclusive residential sector. We also did a few hotels. In the 90s, we started with ships and mega yachts, cabin interior. And then in the early 2000s, we really got going in the business jet sector. And now we're on most major OEM platforms in one way or another. So flooring, cabin interiors of any sort, like furnishings, mirrors, liner panels, pretty much anything you may see in a private jet. We really provide products and services for land, air, and sea, from the specialized subcomponents to the complex, highly integrated cabin interiors. And obviously, my specialty is more in the private jet sector, but yeah, covering a wide range of areas.
Indeed, indeed. And now coming to that obvious question based around a wonderful title, which is Head of Innovation. Now, the few people that I've met who've had similar titles, I have to ask them, so what does it mean? What do you actually do? So I've got to repeat that question to you, Melanie. Head of Innovation. Come on now, tell me exactly what do you do?
All right. The head of innovations in many different companies mean a lot of different things. So it goes from sitting in meetings, talking all day, to going under rocks, uncovering surprises under rocks. In my case, the head of innovations really takes a corporate vision and try to bring it into sellable products. And I'm going even steps further than that to try to look into the future, the 5, 10, 15-year future of what could cabin interior look like from a residential yachts and business jet perspective, taking advantage of new materials, taking advantage of new manufacturing processes, looking into other industries, and try to filter that down to see, okay, what could bring value to our customers in our sectors, and try to bring this to life, and then try to bring that into our R&D pipeline and bring a product, new and innovative product to our customers. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I do. There's a lot of searching, there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of agility and flexibility around that, and trying to also leverage off the core competency of our team. We have huge material core competency within the company, and we're ahead of our competition in that area, and we need to leverage that off and bring new products to market. I hope it helps clarify what the head of innovation is.
Yeah. I'm a master now on innovation. That's fantastic. But what's so obvious is how engaged, enthusiastic, and positive you love what you do, huh?
I love it. It's to me, it's the best job in the world, because I really get to go ahead and show new things to our customers. So we got big OEMs that are really busy in their day-to-day lives and bringing aircraft out the door, but it's really refreshing also for them to be able to get new innovations brought to them without asking for it. So they see what's coming up in a 5, 10, 15 years future, and it also helps them as well shaping their own future.
No, it's incredible. What I did was I just pulled up, what does innovation mean? So it can refer to something new, such as an invention or the practice of developing and introducing new things. An innovation is often a new product, but it can also be a new way of doing something or even a new way of thinking. Innovation is most commonly associated with business and technology, but it happens in any field where people introduce change, including the arts, medicine, politics, cooking, language, even philosophy and religion. And the internet changed society and is often considered the ultimate example of innovation, but it was built on the backs of many smaller previous innovations. So you really, really do have the chance to, I mean, you can do anything, anywhere, anytime, if somebody's interested in either considering it or buying it. And the thing that I'm always surprised at, and touch wood, and there's plenty of it up here, I've been lucky enough to know friends who've got their own yachts and their own boats. Also, I then became familiar with the famous saying that there's two fantastic days that a boat owner really appreciates. The first one is the day he buys it, and the second one is the day he sells it, because it can be so expensive. And with private jets, I'm not sure whether that's the same sort of saying, but the thing that I always never ever could get away from is what was actually on there. So how much you can fit in such a small space, okay? And I was also lucky enough to go on the head of state of a Middle East country for their birthday, and I think it was the 7th largest private yacht at that particular time, and that was on the other end. But the luxury and the economies of scale and what they can fit, it's incredible.
It's fantastic. It's unbelievable. And honestly, yachts are amazing in a way that there is a lot less restriction than what we see in private jet business, where they have the space, they can take the weight, no issue. In our industry of business jet interiors, it's always a weight issue. The fuselage is not so big. We need to do a lot with very little space. So we're again, coming back to innovation, we're trying to define new materials, challenge material properties, and try to bring organic movement to have that multifunctional environment, packing more punch in the very, very little space we have. But with the yachts, they don't have that problem. The weight is no issue and they have the space. So it's fantastic for us to bring innovations also to yachts because it's a nice playground.
It's incredible. Now, before we get into a little bit of detail there, but you've been with F-List now for 12 years?
12 years, yeah.
12 years. So obviously you started when you were 11 or 12, so fair play to you. But 12 years, 12 years, but it's given you a great background because of you worked in advanced research, engineering, certification, systems, so that positions you well for the overall responsibility that you've got. Now, within this innovation, okay, and obviously, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking from all across industries, anything that makes something practical, but obviously easy to use. And like we all know, you've got limited space to work in. So, think the element of surprise, but the element of optimization is so important. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, with those pressures, and as you said, with weight and obviously with sustainability and carbon footprint and all of the PR that goes, it's almost like a paradox when somebody says that, we're responsible and we're looking after sustainability, etc. And then you see what the press love to do. They always pick somebody who's doing something good, and then they show them getting onto a private aircraft, etc. But I always try and say to everybody, there's 3 Ps. It's people, profit, and planet. And if people have got an understanding that you need profit to influence what happens with the planet, they're less extreme and they understand and they appreciate the whole picture. And likewise, if you're making profit, you should be reflecting on people and knowing that you do something for the future of the planet, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to keep that positivity in an environment where people, basically it's green eyes because they don't appreciate that, people who are able to influence industry and outcomes, they need to make use of their time, and private aviation allows them to do that. So now, how do you come to grips with all of those conundrums and all of those sort of challenges against each other? But that I'm assuming is also part of your innovation profile, isn't it?
Absolutely. Sustainability is a huge part right now of our efforts. There is an appetite for it at the moment, but there is a skeptical appetite.
Yeah.
We have the feeling that in business jets, people are either very interested or really don't care. There's that skepticism going around, and approaching the topic is fairly difficult from a pragmatic perspective. There's a lot of storytelling around it. That is part of it. And when we really want to be true and bring it pragmatically to the table, we have to make sure that we look at the life cycle of the products we're putting out, from the raw materials all the way to the end of life, all the way to which kind of energy was used to produce them, from where they were transported. So it's a deep rabbit hole that we can go down. But we're trying again to bring that back to a pragmatic perspective. So trying to use those natural materials that we're already using, something like upcycling. We're trying to bring new material, new sustainably sourced material or local materials as well. We have one of the largest photovoltaic installation in Austria. So we're able to abate around 20 to 25% of our energy when we're producing our cabinets. We also have the cooling from the river that is going through our plant. So we have a lot of ways to bring the sustainability topic inside our product in a way that is not causing this kind of skepticism necessarily. We also try to bring the awareness. We know that cabin interiors, in comparison to the business jet itself, that has a certain carbon footprint. Of course, there's a SAF topic that is trying to get on board. There's a lot of activities around cabin interior sustainability that are ongoing, but we know that in cabin interior, probably the biggest impact we can make is in reducing weight. That is the obvious, but it's not what the customer sees, feels, and touch. So we're trying to go into the weight reduction topic as much as we can, but also we're going into how can we show the customer that there are elements of his cabin that reminds him of his environmental consciousness, for example. So bringing small inlays with plants or natural material or some recycled material, something that looks elegant and trendy, but also reminds him or her that he's doing something. He's bringing something to the table. And there is that hunger in the market for something new decorative material, new materials in general that have a different look to it. People are used to the good old business jet interior look that has been around since the early days of business jet that have not evolved that much with the time. And we're trying to tackle that and bring something completely different because in the early days, it was the eyeglass wood veneers, and there was always the same thing coming back in the normal leather and so on. And now it's been around, and those kind of more natural, untreated materials or sustainability source material were not even looked at. And now as the industry is hungry for more, we're coming up with some new materials which are fresh, which are trendy, and which people are really interested in. So all to raise that awareness. There is that pragmatic aspect of it where we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint and come to carbon neutrality as well, and even carbon negativity eventually, but also visually raise the awareness.
I think it's brilliant. And I think it's easy to throw stones at certain parts of the industry because it's with the wealthy and it's published. But I think some of the journalism, the positive journalism that could be there, isn't done enough. So I'm assuming now when you're selling or when the manufacturers are selling their aircraft or people are looking at it, it would give them a little bit of peace of mind to know that they were at least doing something that contributes, albeit it shouldn't be something that says, well, look, I fly all these miles and I do this, etc. I think the overall picture is really, 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 really positive. Now, something that I wanted to ask, and you go across all industries, I'm sure, and especially with your enthusiasm, you must also get surprised at what can be done with what materials.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, there are materials where quite often these are old materials or old processes from our ancestors, which are suddenly coming back to life because, it was actually a non-toxic way, fairly simple footprint. way to build something, and all of a sudden our carpenters and our upholsterers are coming up with ideas. Yeah, it's great grandfather used to do it this way, and we're coming back to that. So I'm extremely surprised sometimes to see the solution we come up with are actually fairly simple, and they come from the old books of cabinet making or upholstery or some old materials. And at the same time, we've got all those research and new polymers and materials from either recycled materials or from all sorts of negative carbon footprint sources, which are having that kind of clash of generations into the materials world. And we're able to bring the old and the new together. So I do have a lot of surprises there. And it's great because we have a fantastic team working on that, and they're really looking everywhere and anywhere for new stuff. And on the other hand, I was at NBW a few weeks ago and walking around and looking at what people have to offer. And this is where everything kind of fell flat. There's not much innovation there. And it somehow made me feel good because I was like, okay, we got something in our back pocket that, yeah, we can make a big splash here fairly recently. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And obviously with private aviation, it got an awful lot of positive feedback during the epidemic because of the good that it did and helping people get in and out. Some people that were really distressed and needed an option, but also the fact that it was roughly, I don't know what it was, 10 to 1 or something as far as touch points going through normal airports and legacy carriers. So people are starting to look at it a lot more. So the more they see of this, of this sustainable approach, the more at ease they'll be with that decision. That's also influenced because of sanitization, efficiency, et cetera. And I've also got some colleagues who've got companies, and what they've been doing as well is they've been having their multinational meetings held at FBOs. So they fly the people in from everywhere. They don't go anywhere else other than there. Some of them are so luxurious now. They've got all the facilities and amenities that you'd need, and they have it done very efficient and then back out again. And that's so efficient. So the types of interiors, so whether or not it's for multi-passengers or small groups of passengers, I'm assuming now that you can go from a much broader scale, subject to people's choice.
Absolutely.
Now, with that innovation catalog, shall we say, how much bigger is that getting now? Because, like you said, in the old days, it always seemed to me, anyhow, that something was done in a yacht first, and then it was transferred to an aircraft. And so now that catalog of choice must be huge.
It's massive. It's massive, and it's from sustainability product to innovation product. When you see in the magazines, there's a lot of renderings everywhere of those futuristic interior technology integration, seamless integration of everything, and lights coming out and screens and displays and that kind of almost virtual interiors. There's a lot of that out there, but we haven't seen a lot coming to life. And those catalog of materials are now slowly allowing us to go there. So it's about the structure, it's about the decorative material, it's about what kind of finish we can put on those interior to bring that technology to life the way the designers intended in some of the renderings, stuff that we're all drooling on when we see some magazine and editorials where we would love to see those interiors come to life, and nobody has been able to do it. And this is where we're also really pushing hard through that catalog to bring those interiors to life that were not possible before.
Yeah. So 2 questions for you now. One, what has been the biggest surprise, or whether it's huge or whether it's something small, but something that you thought, my God, that was brilliant? That's the first question. And then the second one is, if you were able to let your imagination and your minds with your technical knowledge run awry, what do you think we're going to see in 10 to 15 or 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
So
they're a little bit linked to each other, because I would say my biggest surprise that happened quite recently was when the team got together to think exactly of what could be the cabin of the future, what could it come down to in the next 10 to 15 years. And we started thinking about those multifunctional spaces and the open spaces and assisting the customer's journey. And we started thinking about those organic movements.
Yeah.
And, you know, a little bit like biomimicry, trying to bring the animal skin to life and try to have the cabinets really morphing in the cabin. And the team got off and they came back, and because we knew that we needed natural material to do that. Otherwise, passengers are not going to start loving to touch silicone all of a sudden just because it moves, right? So we needed to have the real natural material. And you know what? They did it. They brought those kind of material to life, and now they can dynamically move in the cabin. So I think we're in the very early development of that, but that kind of parametric design mixed with biomimicry, mixed with the new materials available to be able to bring that dynamic movement in the cabin, which was never seen before, was the biggest surprise. And that to me will become the future, the 5 to 10 years future, probably.
Okay. And when you say movement now and dynamic movement, I mean, people, anybody listening, and even myself, I'm thinking, what's she talking about? What do you mean by that dynamic movement?
What I mean by that is actually, you know, if you want to think 10, 15 years ahead, you know, those business jets, you get on board and that galley area is all cramped up and you got to kind of move sideways in them. What about you get on the aircraft, and as you move through the cabin, the interior is shrinking to let you pass, and then it will take its place again. If, for example, you have a lavatory, like forward lavatories in those long range, ultra long range jets, the forward lavatories are not that big still. How about it takes very little space, but as soon as you walk into them, it grows to make a much bigger space. So this is what I mean by morphing.
So the only trouble is you can't get away with slipping to the toilet without being noticed, because it's going to start getting bigger as you walk in there.
Correct.
Yeah. No, well, that's incredible. So I can, and now that you've explained it that way, I can picture it myself. So if you start loading from the rear, and you get the passengers going on who are sitting in the rear seats, as they're walking in, everything else can move closer together, so they got more space and it seems great. And then they settle down, then it goes back to the next one.
Correct. That's the kind of stuff we're working on, and you know, just assisting the customer journey again. You know, if someone wants to sit down and work, that environment around him can morph and come to him to make sure that everything is there without having to move around too much or move too many components around him. So the cabin can adapt to the customer's journey and add that value that wasn't there before.
Okay, so things like if they wanted to go to a work in like an office area, they'd be able to, or the seat would turn round, and then out of the side would come sections, so it'd be like a desk, and it would almost wrap around the person, and then when it finished, they go back again.
Right. The table could come out of the side ledge organically, and then that person could work, and then when that's over, it could just move organically back into the side ledge area.
That's fantastic.
Or having a dining area into the cabin that is basically growing out of a credenza cabinet.
That's fantastic. And it must be lovely to be able to sit with a group of people with a blank canvas and just bang, 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 and this is what we'd like, and have the imagination running wild. What are the people like who work in that field with you?
They're crazy. They have to be crazy. Oh, we've got an extremely talented team, and what's beautiful about it is that there's very little of those that come from the aerospace industry, because otherwise those ideas would be shut down right away because it's not pragmatic enough. Aerospace we're used to, it has to be pragmatic, it has to pass FLAM, it has to be certifiable, it has to meet the qualification, durability, and so on. And those guys, they have that in the background, but they come from architectural background. We have somebody that has a background in jewelry. We've got cabinet makers. We've got people that come from the Formula One industry. R&D from the automotive industry. We've got electrical specialists, pneumatic specialists, mechanical engineers, people with antiviral background to also have that aspect of it. And we have a pretty big team in there that is focused entirely on sustainability.
That's fantastic. So obviously the hygiene and the sanitization is so important now, but also lighting. I mean, lighting can make a huge difference, subject to the times of day and night that you're flying, and that can really enhance space and everything, can't it?
Absolutely. And I would say that most of the major OEMs right now have incorporated some adaptive mood lighting that is supposed to reduce the jet lag as the flight goes on, especially with those ultra large cabins that are developed. There's a lot more of that. And we're trying to help as much as we can in that field as well by, we're able to backlight stone elements, for example. So we can incorporate that into the cabin. Backlighting veneers elements, backlighting stone elements, whether it's the flooring on the walls, on the ceiling panels. So there's a lot of ways that we can bring that jet lag fighting aspect in a very subtle way that people don't even realize it's there.
Okay, no, that's brilliant. So not only can you board somewhere a lot more convenient without the queues, without the stresses and the traffic and everything, and then when you're on board, you've got a much more conducive environment that either keeps you fit as a fiddle for when you arrive. It's a wonderful area to work in. Now, I mentioned at the beginning about surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now you've also got a pilot's license.
I do.
You flew seaplanes, and also you've got a tail dragging pilot experience behind you. How on earth did you get into that?
Well, I can't explain it because I fell in love with aviation at the youngest age. I can't even remember when I started falling in love with aerospace, So as early as I could, I joined the Air Force Cadets because I wanted to become a pilot. Okay. And obviously, that's how it started. But unfortunately, I was much better at breaking the rules than following them, so that for the Air Force was not ideal. And I was wearing glasses, so the whole pilot acceptance topic kind of fell off there. So I ended up studying aerospace, and at the same time, I did my PPL license and my seaplane rating. And then as soon as I got my first job and could gather enough money, I bought an old tail dragger. So I had to do my tail dragger rating for that. And I thought that about a Mall M4, old one, 1961, I think, 1963. Mall M4, and I thought that this was cheap. So because I buy a cheap airplane, that's good. So I wanted to bring my hours up to get my commercial license, and I started flying it, and I realized that it's just so much maintenance that I just couldn't afford all the maintenance of an old airplane. So I ended up doing my A&P license to be able to wrench my airplane by myself, and I kind of saved the cost like that. And as soon as school ended, I got a call from a major OEM, got a development program job, and there was no more time afterwards. So I sold the plane, and that was the end of my flying career. But I'm really happy where I am today.
Yeah, no, well, it's obvious. I mean, I'm not being funny now, but genuinely, I don't think I've seen somebody for a long time who looks as content, as happy as you do. If you could put that in a bottle and sell it, you'd be a multi-millionaire.
Let me take a note of that. Maybe that's a new innovation.
There you new innovation. Yeah. Like you said earlier about the rabbit hole. Instead of Alice in Wonderland, we can call it Melanie in Wonderland. So yeah, no, brilliant. But seriously, it's a wonderful thing to see somebody, especially in this day and age now, who obviously loves without a shadow of a doubt what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what it means.
I love it because it's all about making a difference, whether it's sustainability, whether it's innovation, whether it's bringing new things to the market that people have not seen before, and also keeps us ahead of the game as well. So we're bringing innovation to the market, and we get to travel and see our customers and show them what we've got, and to see them impressed of the innovation we're bringing to the table. It's super motivating. Yeah. So it's great.
No, it is. It's fantastic. Can I ask you, some of the things that you see on private jets now, and then you go on to the legacy carriers and you go into something, and you think, why on earth don't they carry across some of those areas of innovation and to really make people go, wow, what a sparkle, Because one of the things that I always think is a little bit peculiar, you can understand it from one side, but not the other, is when everybody boards, and then a lot of times they come through the front, so they see what it's like, and then they go down to their seat and they think, God, dear, those lucky buggers up front. Why aren't I up there? So that's a nice thing, maybe to incentivize them to go and see what it's like. But it's also a like, oh God, and I've got to sit here, So in one sense, it's tactically nice, and in another sense, you think, well, why are you doing it? But there are so many things that could be transferred into the main cabin. They could really make people go, wow, and you look at some of the finishings and you think, this isn't really good. But don't you think there's a huge opportunity there?
There's a huge opportunity there for sure. I mean, the volume of those aircraft flying is amazing. So of course, that's a market that we're slowly trying to reach as well. I gotta say though, commercial aviation is very difficult. Weight, cost. It's hard to bring the luxury, the premium feeling to the economy cabin, for example, and still stay upright. It's a very, very, very big challenge. And honestly, we're also trying to develop elements, especially on the sustainability side of things, where it brings a value added also in an economy cabin. So as soon as we talk about dramatically reducing weight, dramatically reducing carbon footprint of the materials, we're starting to get some attention. So we're slowly getting there. We do provide some materials for the commercial aircraft industry, but we're really looking to increase our market share. And I think that with what we're coming up with in the next year or two, we'll definitely get that way.
No, and I think there's great opportunities there, like you said, in the weight reduction, but also in the shock and surprise element that makes people feel at ease themselves, that they're also flying with somebody who's looking after the sustainability issue as well as the practicalities of business itself.
Absolutely.
And I think when they see that, and especially now the younger generations who have got much more focus and they really want to go somewhere that's making a difference. I think any carriers who start to show what they're doing, they're going to get a lot of footfall that are going to say, right, no, I want to go on that carrier because, and it's not going to be so much about connections cost is always going to be there for people. But if it's that close to making a decision, they'll go where they see it, from a sustainability perspective.
I believe that too. I believe it's going to be more and more a big part of their decision of even flying or not flying. There's just so much flight shaming that's happening these days, and I think it's going to grow. But if we can do our part in providing them that awareness, that they get on the aircraft and they see, this was made with, it's visible that there is something that comes from nature, that was recycled from nature, that was upcycled from, I don't know, ocean plastic or whatever, even if you show it by itself, just by the material being there, it raises that awareness that somebody's doing something about it. And even if it's not a tangible carbon reduction on that particular aircraft, it's about raising that awareness again, making people see it, feel it, that somebody's doing something. And they are, just by them flying that airline, they are contributing to us doing something about it.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I've got to ask you something now, right? When you were sitting in school and you thought to yourself, what am I going to do now when I leave, and what am I going to do? Did you have that clarity?
No, not at all. Every plan I made in my life never worked the way I planned them to. So it kind of, the road has been twisting and turning. You wouldn't believe, when I got out of school, one of my first jobs in the industry was in the airworthiness department of a big OEM. So talk about like the complete opposite of where I am today, trying to meet the rule, doing the regulatory aspect of things. And I loved it. I loved it because I could play the gray zone all the time and trying to see how we can get around and how we can get as much as possible out of requirements. And I think it was a good kickoff for where I am today, because now I have that as a background always of what I see around and what I try to bring to the aircraft industry. There's always this certification engineering in the background that is telling me, okay, like how far off could we be from making that a certifiable product? But no, this was far, far away from my vision at the time. I was still wanting to be a pilot at the time.
But it's lovely, isn't it? If you have an outlook in life that if you see a door, always want to open it because you never know what's on the other side.
Right.
And if you walk through it, there's other doors, and you can keep doing this and keep doing this. As long as you keep looking at that, it's a positive issue. Now, as far as going through your career and where you are now, did you find major obstacles, or did you see them as challenges that then wanted you to overcome them? And did you get people that gave you a help, that encouraged you, you know?
There was always very good help all around. I think that's one great thing of working in this industry. It's a really tough industry.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you know, it's development programs are, you know, I'm going to die probably 10 years younger than I should be because of aircraft development programs. But on the other hand, it's a super good learning experience, and it's a turbocharged expertise that come in play, and everybody works really close together, and everybody cries when the airplane flies and the first deliveries are happening. And then I moved on from there into more of the delivery bay, making sure that the troubleshooting was happening, the aircraft was going out on time. Again, very much from a certification standpoint as well. Yeah, there was always a very, very friendly environment, even if we were working really hard. So obstacles, yes, all the time. There is thousands of obstacles that happen in those course of developments. I would say more technical challenge than human challenges, but you know, this is all shaping the expertise of what I have today to do what I got to do today. So
it's fantastic, fantastic. And if somebody was to ask you, you know, what skill set or what elements of that success that you've obviously got, what would you say they were?
I would say always keeping the eyes open, the creativity juices flowing to the maximum, never really trying to box yourself into a preconceived perception of things. Like, break the barriers, like look where it's not supposed to work, and not just keep on what is supposed to work. Like, just look outside of that. Like, if you got a problem, invert it, make it the way that you would have the least thought that this would work. And then sometimes there's something really crazy coming out of it, and it turns out to be a brand new innovation of a lot of people that were trying to solve the problem and never could. But yeah, it's really about looking outside the boundary. I mean, this is going to sound cliche, but live outside of the comfort zone. We heard that for a long time, but it's still true today. Like, keeping creative, keeping flexible, keeping agile, motivating the team, making sure that they are the ones who come with the solutions as well, and guiding the vision, the corporate vision, and making sure that it comes down to a sellable product that is successful.
No, I think it's brilliant. Seriously, and I'm not just because you're on the show, but honestly, you're a breath of fresh air and an inspiration. You should be doing coaching. You should be, you know, doing speeches at schools and universities to get people into this business, you know, because that's what it needs. It needs people who, you know, who never take no for an answer in the right way, and it needs people who are so determined and disciplined in the right way. But it needs people who love meeting challenges head on and seeing how they can, you know, not bypass or go under, but how they can really, really, really beat them for the right reasons.
That's true. The world needs more openness in general, and less of that aerospace pragmatism and engineering thinking. It's always good to have it because it needs to fly. So there needs to be the rule and everything around it. But we got to be more open about solving problems differently than we've done in the past, and bringing new ideas to the table. Keep bringing up the voices that are constantly shut down. In the industry and with our colleagues as well. People who are coming from other industries do quite often have a very different vision of things, and it's not always a bad thing. Like, let it come. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. And it's like, you know, if you look at the Bumblebee, or if you look at a 747 or a 380 or any aircraft, you think to yourself, my God, how on earth does that do what it does? It's amazing. Same as, like, you see a big cruise liner or anything that floats on the sea, and you think, how did that? You know, it's incredible. It's incredible. And that's what makes the world go round, you know. The more imagination that we've got, you know, the better it is. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm definitely gonna try one way or the other to keep in touch, because I'd love to see what innovation comes over the next few years. But I'm being serious. You're an absolute breath of fresh air, Melanie. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a chat with you, to meet you. And you know, I'm going to get my son and daughter to watch this as well. And you've got such a natural, warm smile about what you do. It's incredible. If you can bottle this now, you know, you're going to be a multimillionaire. And then if you need someone to sell it, I'd happily sell it for you. So
fantastic. Much appreciated, Chris. It was a
well
pleasure to
and I
talk to
hope
you.
everybody,
Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, and I hope everybody at F-List, you know, they really appreciate all that's going on, and your colleagues. Fair play to you all. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a pleasure.